Well, hey, Diet Disruptors, Carrie here, and welcome to another mini episode all about how we are going to get you managing time instead of time managing you. Time is the thing that I am probably the most obsessed about. I get myself so passionate about teaching people how to understand and respect time because we can't make more of it. We can always make more money, right? We can always make up for doing things that maybe aren't the best. But we can't go back in time. It's the great equalizer. Anybody, no matter how much money they make or how famous they are, we all have 168 hours in a week. How we use that time is so important. I also think about the time funnel because the time funnel is this concept around how our years and think about this. I'm turning 50 this year, and I think, where did the time go? And I can't believe my daughter is 20 this year. I just feel like it was 10 minutes ago I was 20. It goes by fast. When I moved to Mexico for a year with my girls, golly, that was hard. I mean, they didn't speak the language. They were thrown into a brand new school with new people in all Spanish, and they didn't even know how to count to 10 in Spanish. And the days felt like they went by really slow, but the year went by fast. And we look back on that year and we're like, gosh, it seemed like it flew by, even though it definitely didn't. Time is just this crazy warp of surrealness that doesn't always make sense to us. And this funnel of time is really around the concept and respecting the fact that how we spend, like what happens over the years, is all a result of how we spend our months, which is a result of how we spend our weeks, and then how we spend our days. And that trickles down to our hours and our minutes. Now, I am not one to say that we have to spend every single minute being productive, every single second. But we do have to recognize that when that time slips away, we can't get it back. And our capacity is something to respect because we also have to be efficient with what we're doing. I know like in college, for example, when I would maybe pull all-nighters, uh, let's be honest, I wasn't really that effective, but it was hard to convince me of that because I just thought like the more time I put in, the better it would be. As I've gotten older, I realized if I don't get my sleep, I am going to be no good the next day, and then I'm going to be completely non-productive. So we have to be just really thoughtful about all of these pieces. But how we spend our minutes or hours translates into our days, into our weeks, into our months, and into our years. And so this is what we are talking about. This is the third episode in this mini series that I'm doing around how we are going to manage time instead of time managing us this year. And these little mini episodes are walking you through step by step, a little bit like a training, a little bit like how I work with my clients. 1% learning over time to be able to add up to something big and transformational. So in the first episode in this series, I talked to you about brain dumping your 168 hours. And if you haven't listened to that or haven't done that yet, go back and listen to it, go back and do that. But you can still listen to this episode because it's going to just sort of front load you for what you're going to be doing next. In the second episode, I talked about Michael Hyatt's concept of mapping out your ideal week. Ideally, once you know your 168 hours and what you're going to be doing during those 168 hours, how all of that time plays out, believe me, you have enough time, I promise. Then you're going to map it out into an ideal week blueprint. Ideally, you have enough time for everything because you mapped it out in your brain dump of 168 hours. Now you're actually going to map it out on a piece of paper that says, where am I going to do these things? And just that alone is going to help you to be more intentional. But today, I want to introduce to you another really brilliant person that I teach to my clients. A lot of the stuff that I teach isn't just like Carrie thought of it all. I don't need to reinvent the wheel when there are so many smart people that have done incredible things. I'm like a puzzle builder. I take all the little pieces of the puzzle and I put it together so that it makes the full picture for you. It's these little things that are going to give you the opportunity to learn how to fly your own plane, to sit in the cockpit and know how all these buttons work. But your cockpit, your plane is going to look very different than someone else's. So your ideal week, your 168 hours, and what we're going to talk about today is also going to look very different depending on you. So what do we do after we get our ideal week going? We have lots of things to talk about. But this one first is when I first was introduced to it by Stephen Covey, and he talks about the 7 habits of highly successful people. Lots of these have just stood the test of time. And one concept that he talks about is recognizing how we're spending our time, the quality of what we're doing during our time, and the importance of it. So I want you to get a piece of paper out. This is going to be a good thing for you to take some notes on. If you just get a blank piece of paper and you just make a big cross in the middle of it, like a T, where you have four quadrants. And on the left quadrant, on the top left, I want you to put the word important. And on the bottom left, I want you to put the word not important. And then on the top of your quadrant, you're going to put the word urgent on the upper left-hand part of that quadrant. And then on the right side, on the top part of that quadrant, you're going to put not urgent. So we have important and we have urgent. We have not important and not urgent in this quadrant. This is an incredible exercise. If you just think back to a day, a typical day, maybe it was yesterday, and you actually look at all the tasks that you did, or you have a really big to-do list and you have everything down, all these things that you have to do, you can use that list to help. Now, that's what I do very often. When I am really overwhelmed with a lot of things to do, and I've got this massive to-do list that I feel like is going to take me years to accomplish, I do this exact activity that I'm teaching you today because it helps get my head on straight, prioritize, and be much more efficient. So when I'm looking at my to-do list, I put things in different categories. So let's think about this quadrant. If we are looking at the upper left-hand corner, we've got urgent and important. And if you are working in there, I do a lot of work with correctional officers and the prison system. And the correctional officer world is one where so many things are on fire. So many things pop up that are important and urgent. And I recognize that. And I work with them to be able to try to manage that, because when you're always working in important and urgent, what does life look like, do you think? If you look at your to-do list and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is really important and I had to do this yesterday, how does that present in your body, in your life? Lots of stress, right? Lots of anxiety. There's a reason why the average lifespan of a correctional officer is 59 years. It breaks my heart. It's why I'm so passionate about working with them. But as a typical non-correctional officer type of person, how much of your day, if you're really honest with yourself, is sitting in that important and urgent category? If that's a lot of your day, then you can imagine why you're so stressed all the time. Because constantly working where you feel like you're behind the eight ball and it's so important, it makes you really struggle on a daily basis. So if you look at your to-do list and you see so many tasks are sitting in that quadrant, no wonder time is taking a hold of you, you don't feel in control, and you're stressed all the time. Today's episode is brought to you by Be Rooted In, a magnesium lotion that also has essential oils in it. And if you are like me, you are going to need it as part of your daily routine because it is that luxurious and that beneficial. Magnesium is actually a mineral that most of us need. And if we're taking a capsule, I hate to tell you, but it's probably not doing what you think it is. When I first talked to my functional nutritionist, she had told me magnesium lotion is the way to go. And I could not find any on the market that weren't greasy or that had ingredients that I felt good about actually absorbing into my skin. And then I met Natalie. I love that she is a fellow female entrepreneur, but Natalie has wrapped her mind, her heart, and her soul all around the benefits of magnesium and why we need it so much. Sleep, stress, pain, so many different functions in our body rely on us having high levels of magnesium. And magnesium lotion is such an amazing way to be able to have it. Her products, which help with sleep or pain or tranquility, because of the essential oils in it and because of the high amount of magnesium, it is an absolutely essential part of my daily routine, and I can't wait for you to try it as well. If you go to my website, carrielupoli.com, go check out my favorite products, click on the link for magnesium lotion, and I have a special code for you too to be able to get 20% off your first order. I'm going to say something here, and that's depending on how open you are in your mindset. If you have kind of a growth mindset and you're coachable here, then I want you to take this seriously. If you're going to be kind of stuck in your your belief system right now, this is going to be a little hard to hear. Not everything on your list that you've marked as important and urgent really is important and urgent. It might feel like it is, but you got to ask yourself the real hard question. Is it really? Could I go to bed tonight with this not being done? What happens if this isn't done? If you don't get this done, seriously, honestly, ask yourself what happens. It might feel urgent, it might feel important. And if you could do that little bit of a litmus test with your important and urgent quadrant, you can probably pull a few things off of there. So now let's go down that quadrant. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you now have urgent and not important. Ooh, what does that mean? Well, this happens a lot of time for people at work, that there are things that your boss may have said is really urgent. And you are just like, it is not that important. Now, this is where, especially at work, we get ourselves tripped up a little because if our boss says something is important and we don't really think it's important, what does that important actually mean? Well, I really want to focus my time on my definition of what I believe my purpose is. And if I'm doing things that are purpose driven, that's what's important. And if I am finding myself doing things that just don't align with my purpose or with like keeping my family alive, right? Or, certain things that go along with my kids, then is it really that important? I this is kind of like a satire in a way, but Christmas cookies is a good example of this. I often see women so stressed out because they have to have the Christmas cookie experience with their kids, and they look at it as important and urgent, and they've got to do it. But at the end of the day, it's the quality of time that we're spending with our kids, and we put a lot of our pressure on ourselves for things like that, and it might not actually be that important. So, are you sitting in the urgent and not important matrix a lot? And is your to-do list in that? If you're really honest with yourself, if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, which is why the important, it really comes out as more important than it should be. Ask yourself how much is sitting in there. Because if you're doing a lot of things that are urgent, but you don't really feel like it's meaningful or important, then you're not going to feel purpose driven. You're not going to feel like you're doing the things that really matter. Now, we will all be doing things that are not important and urgent, of course, but it's this balance that we're striving for. All right, so let's go over to the upper right hand quadrant. So we've got important and not urgent, right? So I want you to think about important and not urgent. If you are doing important things that go along with who you know you are, where your purpose is, and what you want to be doing in life, and it's not urgent, ooh, think about what that could look like. That's margin, that's space, that's capacity. I know that when I am like so overwhelmed, I can't think strategically in my businesses. I just am like this taskmaster that's getting things done, but can't actually get out of my own way to make decisions that are meaningful, to be able to do the projects that are going to take a long time, but that are really going to make a difference in either my life or the life of my clients. When we are sitting in the not urgent but important matrix, we have less stress but tons of purpose. And I love that quadrant. And we want to be spending as much time there as we can because we're doing purpose driven stuff, but it doesn't feel like we're always behind the eight ball. Do you see the difference between being not urgent and important versus important and urgent? Just the two mindsets are so different. The way we show up for ourselves is so different. When I'm sitting in important but not urgent, I can make time for myself to work out without feeling like guilt or feeling like my brain is somewhere else. I can sleep without feeling like I should be up doing work. And then let's look at the bottom right hand corner of the quadrant where we have got not urgent and not important. Well, if a lot of people are sitting there, if you're sitting in this place, I talk to my clients who are often retired and they're feeling like nothing I do is all that urgent and it doesn't feel that important. Well, then that's why we often get sucked into a different level of depression because we don't really know our purpose, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. And that is the opportunity to say, okay, I need to level myself up. I am still here on this earth and I am here for a purpose, so I have to start doing those things. I have to start doing something different to be able to get myself into the more important range. And if you look at your big to-do list and you're actually honest with yourself and you make this little quadrant for yourself and you plot in the tasks into each corner of the quadrant, be it will be a real awakening to see how much of my time am I spending in the place that's actually making me less stressed and more purpose driven, which is the not urgent and important quadrant, and how much of my time is spent in the place that's making me the most stressed, where it's like super important, but it's always urgent. And how much of my time is spent in the it's not really that important, but it always feels urgent. And therefore, you're doing things that aren't aligned with really who you are and what you want. This is such an amazing activity to do when you're overwhelmed because it allows you to prioritize your time and then honestly to throw out the things that don't really matter. Or if you can't throw it out, get yourself super focused to get them done so that you can focus on what really matters most. So this was episode 3 in this series, and I hope you can see how I'm building up a little bit of your learning and understanding with each episode. We're going to keep digging more into this because I want you to be able to take a hold of time this year. Imagine if time doesn't control you, but you control time. What could you do with your life if you had that space and capacity to do it? The sky's the limit, right? All right, stay tuned for the next episode.